5 signs to look for in your acne if you want to see whether it's caused by stress or not. You probably don't know this, but it's super easy to tell if your acne is induced by stress because this type of acne actually comes with some very specific signs. So in this video, I will show you exactly what to look for in order to see whether you are breaking out because of stress or not. And if you actually do, I will also give you the best treatment routine for this form of acne because it's not very hard to keep it under control as long as you're focusing on its root cause. But in order to do this, you have to be 100% sure that your acne is triggered by stress, not by something else. And just to show you a really good example, we're gonna start with a very interesting exercise. You have 3 pictures of acne on the screen, A, B, and C, but only one of them shows an acne that is caused by stress. And your task is to find out which. I know you probably have no idea so far, but after finding out about these 5 signs that are specific to stress acne, you will have no problem identifying it, trust me. Now, we'll get back to this exercise at the end of this video, so until then, pay attention to the signs of stress acne and you'll find the right answer really easily. Hi and welcome to Acne from A to Z. I'm a pharmacist and on this channel I teach you how to get rid of your acne by fighting its root cause. So if this is something you are interested in, make sure to subscribe below and also follow me on TikTok and on Instagram where I post daily videos and tips about acne. Now let's look at the timeline of this video. So we're gonna start with the 5 most important signs of stress acne that will help you identify it. And then we will move on comparing it with other forms of acne so that it's super easy for you to tell the difference. We will also look at the treatment plan, so how you should get rid of your acne if it is induced by stress. And at the end, we will get back to the exercise from the beginning and I will give you the right answer. So I'm curious whether you answered it right or not, but we'll have to wait until the end to see this. So if you're ready, let's get into it. The most important thing you need to know about stress acne is that it is called by this simply because it appears in those stressful periods. So if you are struggling with this type of acne, you do not break out on a regular basis, only in those times when you are more stressed. And the best way to identify if this is the case is to look at your sebum production. So this is by far the #1 sign of stress acne. And that is if you notice an increase in your sebum in those times when you are more stressed. And that's because people who are prone to develop stress acne tend to notice an increased activity of their sebaceous glands in those times when they are stressed. You need to know that not everyone is likely to get this kind of acne. But if this is your case, you should notice a change in your sebum. So your body, your face makes a lot more sebum when you are under chronic stress. Now, if you're not sure what exactly this means, my advice is to look at your T-zone, so your forehead, your nose, and sometimes even your chin, because these are the areas where we have more sebaceous glands. So obviously, these are the first areas where you would notice an increase in your sebum if there is any. You would basically look for oil, for grease on your face more than before. And this actually tells you that when you are stressed, your body produces more sebum. Now, this sign actually goes hand in hand with the second one, which is T-zone breakouts. And the reason why pimples in this location are specific to stress acne is sebum. Like I said, those areas have more sebaceous glands, so they are the first one to be affected by an increased production of sebum. And whether you knew this or not, sebum is actually the perfect environment for skin bacteria. This is why people with an oily skin type and with a lot of sebum tend to break out on their T-zone. Therefore, if you are stressed and your body makes more sebum, especially in the T-zone, you should expect to see some breakouts there. And this is the reason why if you have stress acne, you will notice that you keep breaking out on your T-zone a lot more than in other areas of your face. So it's all about your body's reaction to stress its sebum production, and the pimples that are specific to those areas. And in my opinion, these two things are the easiest way to tell if you are breaking out because of stress. You notice an increase in your sebum in those times when you are more stressed, and you also tend to break out in your T-zone more than in other areas simply because this is where you have more sebum. Now, the third sign that you are struggling with stress acne isn't necessarily very specific to this kind of acne. Instead, it is specific to those forms of acne that appear because of sebum. And I'm talking about a really good response to classic acne products, things like benzoyl peroxide, salicylic acid, or other exfoliants, azelaic acid, even retinoids, if you are breaking out because of sebum, and in our case, because of stress, which increases your sebum production. In this case, your acne will respond really well to this kind of products. And like I said, we will talk about the exact treatment scheme a bit later on in this video. But what you want to know is that if you are breaking out because of stress, your pimples should react really well to this kind of classic skincare for acne. They should disappear pretty fast and they should dry out when you apply this kind of product. And like I said, I'm going to tell you exactly what to use a bit later in this video. But what you want to keep in mind is that if your acne is actually caused by stress, this kind of products usually work for you, which would not be the case if your acne was hormonal, caused by the gut, or by other similar issues. So this is a really good way to tell the difference. And speaking of pimples, the fourth sign is that acne caused by stress tends to appear as pimples that are pretty mild. They are on the milder side. And what exactly I mean by this is that they are not very aggressive, they are not cystic, they do not leave marks behind after they heal. So they are more whiteheads, even blackheads, and those kind of pimples that tend to disappear pretty fast once they dry out. So they are not going to leave any scars behind or red spots or anything that aggressive pimples usually leave behind. This is actually a very specific thing for pimples that appear because of an increased production of sebum, which is the case of stress acne. So if you actually get breakouts that are more aggressive, more cystic, they are most likely not caused by stress because stress acne does not appear as such a severe form of breakouts. And the last sign I want to mention here isn't necessarily extremely specific to stress acne. But from my experience, I have noticed that people who are likely to get stress acne, who get stress acne on a regular basis, also tend to have this sign. And I'm talking about sensitivity to certain foods that make you break out. Now, what you want to know is that food alone does not cause breakouts. Dairy does not cause breakouts. Chocolate and sugar do not cause breakouts themselves. Instead, what happens is that they can cause breakouts in certain people who are more prone to breakouts. A lot of times they have an oily skin type and an increased production of sebum, but most people do not break out because of foods. However, if you have stress acne, I already mentioned that you tend to have an increased production of sebum in those periods when you are stressed. So your body's reaction to stress is to increase your sebum production. And it's pretty obvious that if this is your case, you have high chances to have a sensitivity to certain foods like sugars or dairies when it comes to acne. So these kind of foods have higher chances to break you out compared to a person who doesn't really get stress acne or doesn't really get an increased sebum production during stress. Now, I know there have been quite a lot of signs, so let's make a really short revision, and here is the profile of acne caused by stress. So if you are breaking out because of stress, you will have an increased production of sebum in your T-zones in those periods when you are more stressed, and consequently, you will tend to break out in that area. However, the pimples you get are not very aggressive, so they are on the milder side and they usually do not leave marks behind. Since they're not very aggressive and they're primarily caused by sebum, they tend to respond really well to skincare products that are meant for acne and that decrease that sebum production, that keep it under control. So this is what you should be focusing on if you have this kind of acne. This is the easiest way to keep it under control and to prevent it. And And also an additional sign that doesn't appear in all cases, but it can be present, is that if your acne is caused by stress, you have higher chances to break out because of certain foods like sugars, dairy, processed foods, and things like that. And that's because these foods will increase your sebum production, which already happens if you have acne caused by stress. So it is something specific to your body, and you want to pay attention to your diet in this case. Going on, I want to make a really short comparison between stress acne and other forms of acne, because I get a lot of questions on my social media every single day, and people are like, how can I tell if I am breaking out because of stress or because of hormones, because of my oily skin type, and things like that. So I'm going to try to answer these questions and give you the best differences between stress acne and other forms of acne. And the first one I want to begin with is hormonal acne, because I see this form of acne a lot of times, especially in adults. It's not as common in teenagers as a lot of you think, and in my experience, it appears a lot of times after 25. Now, the good news is that it is pretty easy to tell the difference between hormonal acne and stress acne. As you probably know, hormonal acne tends to affect the lower part of your face, while stress acne usually appears in the T-zone. In hormonal acne, you don't necessarily have an increased production of sebum. It can happen, especially if you have an oily skin type, but I would say that more often than not, people who have hormonal acne have a normal or drier skin type. At the same time, hormonal acne is a lot more aggressive, so it is cystic, it always leaves marks behind, and it doesn't get too much better with skincare, which isn't necessarily the case of stress acne. It actually responds really well to regular acne products. It is milder and it doesn't really leave marks behind. So I would say that these two forms of acne are very different, and I would say it's pretty hard to mistake one for the other. But this doesn't really happen with oily skin acne, which is pretty similar to stress acne from a lot of points of view. But I would say that the biggest difference is that with oily skin acne, you tend to have a constant production of sebum that is very high. So you have high sebum on a regular basis. Your face is always oily, always greasy. You always have to exfoliate. And at the same time, you get constant breakouts. But with stress acne, these two signs only appear in those times when you are more stressed, when you are under chronic stress, whether it is at work, at home, it doesn't really matter. But this kind of signs are not constant in stress acne. So you do not have an increased production of sebum regularly, and you do not break out on a constant basis, only at times. While with oily skin acne, these things are very constant and you always experience them. They have a lot of common ground as well. I'm not going to go into all of their similarities because there are many, but all in all, these are by far the biggest differences between them. When it comes to fungal acne, things are pretty different. So fungal acne and stress acne aren't very similar. Fungal acne is itchy. This is by far its #1 sign that helps you tell the difference between it and other forms of acne. It also appears in clusters, in groups, so its pimples always appear together, not individual. You don't necessarily have an increased production of sebum. This really depends from person to person, but not everyone who has fungal acne has a high amount of sebum. And also, fungal acne responds to antifungal creams, which is not the case of stress acne, which mostly responds well to classic acne skincare, but definitely not to antifungal creams. Now, how do you know for sure that you have stress-induced acne? I think I gave you some pretty good signs, and you are now able to tell the difference between stress acne and other forms of acne. However, every case is different. So in your case, it might be a bit hard to be 100% sure that your acne is actually caused by stress. So generally, you want to look at how your skin reacts and responds in those times when you are under stress. Do you notice that you have an increased production of sebum? Like, do you notice that your skin is oilier, it is greasier, you have more clogged pores? Do you also notice more breakouts in your T-zones in those periods? If you have tried any classic acne skincare products, benzoyl peroxide, salicylic acid, and things generally doctors recommend, recommend. If you have tried any of them, have you seen an improvement in your acne? What kind of pimples do you have? Are they on the milder side? Do they go away pretty fast? Or they are pretty aggressive, pretty chronic, so constant, you always have them, and they tend to leave marks behind? Because all of these are questions you really need to answer in order to be sure that your acne is caused by stress. If it's still hard for you, and if you're still unsure, if you can't really tell how you could be certain that you are breaking out because of stress, you may want to check my course, the Anti-Acne Formula, which helps you identify the root cause of your acne and also give you a specific action plan in order to get rid of it. So it can help you see if you are actually breaking out because of stress or not. So for those of you who are interested and you want to join, I'm gonna link it below in the description. And if you also want to get a little sneak peek of what I teach in my course, you want to check my free ebook. I'm also gonna link that into the description, and it talks about each of the most important forms of acne, including stress acne, and it's gonna give you a little preview of how you can identify it. This one is completely free, so make sure to download it below. It's time to talk about how can you get rid of stress acne. So if you are sure that you are breaking out because of stress, how can you keep this acne under control? How can you get rid of it? And most importantly, how can you prevent it so that the next time you are under stress, you stop breaking out? And if you follow my videos, you know that I always say that in order to get rid of your acne, you have to focus on its root cause. And in this case, the root cause is stress. And basically, your goal is to keep your stress under control. However, your secondary goal is to keep your sebum under control, because from what we have seen, when you are under stress, your body's reaction is to increase your sebum production. So in order to keep your acne under control, you have to keep your stress levels under control, but you also have to keep your sebum under control. So if you manage to do these two things, you shouldn't really struggle with acne anymore. Now, let's take the first goal, and that is to reduce your stress levels. And I think that this really depends from person to person, because what makes me relax and keeps me under stress is not going to have the same effect on you, because people are different. And for this reason, I would say that you should find some activities that help you manage your stress levels and relax. Whether those are taking a walk in the park, watching TV, staying with your family, sleeping, or maybe just doing nothing at all. If you feel relaxed or if you feel charged when you are going out with friends or talking to people, you should do that. But at the same time, if you feel more relaxed when you are at home reading a book or doing something by yourself, you should definitely do that. So you should find your own way of relaxing and of decreasing stress. And I know this is a lot easier in theory than practically, but if you really want to keep your acne under control, you have to focus on this. And no matter how easy and how insignificant it seems, it is actually very important to try to reduce your stress levels if you think you are breaking out because of stress. This is actually the first step, and it's going to have a really big impact on your acne, even though I agree that it doesn't really seem like such a major thing. The second thing I want us to focus on is keeping your sebum under control. And in this case, you will probably need a routine that is personalized for an oily skin type, because when you are breaking out because of stress, like I said, your acne makes more sebum. So in this situation, your face, your skin type is very similar to an oily skin type. So even though you may not have an oilier skin type in other situations, but when you are under stress, your face pretty much becomes oily because of the increased production of sebum. In my experience, most people who have stress acne actually have this problem. Therefore, you want to find a routine, a skincare routine that keeps your sebum under control. And my personal rule is always that the less products you can do this with, so the less products you can use in order to keep your sebum under control, the better it is. So you probably know by now that I am not a very big fan of complex skincare routine that use very expensive products, or maybe 10 different products. I certainly don't agree, and I don't think it's a good idea to use such a high number of products, because a lot of times you could get the same results or even better results with less products. And this is why I always like to insist on a minimal routine that uses the least number of products and that manages to keep your sebum under control with the least number of products. Now, if you can keep your sebum under control with one single product, with a cleanser for example, it's perfect and there's no need for you to use many other products. But most people who have an increased production of sebum when they are stressed will not be in this situation, so they will not be able to keep their sebum under control with cleansing alone. For this reason, I'm gonna give you an overview of the routine I recommend, and you obviously want to take that with a grain of salt and you want to customize it based on your own needs, because not everyone is the same, so this routine may not be perfect for every single person with stress acne. So the first thing I would recommend is exfoliating. You know that this is very important for someone who has a very oily skin type, a greasy skin type with a lot of sebum. And its goal is to cleanse your face and take away that sebum, unclog your pores, and make sure that your face stays fresh. And it also takes away that skin bacteria that is making you break out because of that increased sebum that you have on your face. Now, I would recommend not exfoliating more than once or maybe twice a week, because this can damage your skin barrier and it can actually make you break out a lot worse than before. So you really want to pay attention with exfoliating. If you want to use an exfoliating cleanser, it's fine, but in this case, I do not recommend using an additional exfoliant. As a spot treatment, I would recommend products with azelaic acid. I do believe that this ingredient works really well when it comes to mild pimples. It helps them dry out really easily, so they would go away a lot faster than normal. But keep in mind that you should use this kind of product as a spot treatment only, so not all over your face. I did make this mistake in the past. I applied azelaic acid on all over my face and I literally destroyed my skin barrier. I know I talked about this in another video, so you definitely do not want to make this mistake yourself, because it can really mess up your skin and make you break out a lot worse. So even if you have an increased production of sebum that is meant to protect you, you still do not want to apply spot treatments all over your face, only specifically on your pimples. A lot of people ask me about whether you should moisturize or not if you have an increased production of sebum, and my answer is always yes. You do want to hydrate your skin, but you want to pay attention to the products you use, and you generally want to go for a moisturizer that is more lightweight, that is more gel-like. And one that I really like and use regularly is Neutrogena's Hydro Boost Cream. This is great if you have an increased production of sebum, so it's great to use when you are breaking out because of stress as a moisturizer, but you can also use when you have a normal production of sebum. So this is a moisturizer that I can definitely swear by. And when it comes to SPF, I do recommend using one on a regular basis, so applying it every single day. But one tip I can give you here is to use a mineral one, because in my experience, it kind of works better for people who have an oilier skin type, so an increased production of sebum. You may want to use that in those times when you are under stress and you feel like your face is breaking out and making more sebum. If you can tolerate a regular, so a chemical SPF, this one is also fine. But from my experience, people who have a lot of sebum tend to see better results with a mineral SPF. And here we are back to our exercise. So I am very curious whether you picked the right answer, but I think that by now you are pretty sure which is the right answer and which of these three pictures of acne actually shows stress acne. So let's take them by turn, and we're gonna start with picture C. As you can see, this acne mostly affects the cheeks, which is not an area that is specific to acne caused by stress. These pimples are also pretty aggressive, pretty cystic, and based on how they look like, they probably leave marks behind. So at first sign, this is a classic form of gut acne, so of acne caused by an imbalance in your microbiome, which doesn't really have a lot to do with stress. Stress can indeed be a factor that affects the gut, but stress alone couldn't really have caused this type of acne, so this is definitely not stress acne. Going on, we have a picture of a back acne, which isn't necessarily specific to a stress trigger. So stress alone doesn't really cause acne on the back only. Like I said, its areas are mostly the T-zone. So this acne doesn't really seem to be caused by stress at first sight. It is also pretty aggressive as well. As you can see, it's not very mild, and you know that milder pimples are more specific to stress acne. So at first sight, I would say that picture B is also not caused by stress. Instead, picture A has all chances to be triggered by stress. You can see that there is some grease if you pay attention to the picture. The face is also pretty oily, and most of the breakouts are on the T-zone. They are not very aggressive. As you can see, we don't really know if they leave marks behind or not, but they are not very aggressive. If you compare them to picture C with that acne on the cheeks that caused some pimples that were pretty severe, this is not the case here. So in my opinion, this is probably a form of acne that is caused by stress. I am pretty curious whether you answered it right, but I think that based on these 5 signs, it wasn't very hard for you to pick the right answer. And I have also prepared for you a little homework, so a similar exercise, and you should see right now 3 different pictures. So for the next time, I want you guys to tell me which of these 3 pictures you believe that is stress acne. So only one of them actually shows stress acne, and as far as you know, which of them is the closest to stress acne. If you can also tell me why, it's even better. So you can leave me a comment below and explain why you think that one of these pictures is stress acne, which of these signs makes you think that it is caused by stress, and what actually indicates that its main trigger could be stress. So I am waiting for your answers in the comments below, and I am very curious to hear if you choose the right one. I really hope this video was helpful, and let me know if you have any other sign of identifying stress acne and whether you believe that your own acne is caused by stress or not. And I will see you next time.